Howdy, folks. Today we're looking at Walt Disney Giant number 1 from 1995 in Gladstone. After spending much of the early 90s toiling away on the life and times of Scrooge McDuck, you'd think Don Rosa might want a break, but much of his subsequent decade was spent chiseling away on companion stories to that epic. Today's specimen is one such appendix, another journey back to the climax of Scrooge's early legend, 1898, Dawson City, Yukon territory. As well-trod as these boards may appear, it's worth noting that Carl Barks himself only ever published 2 stories on Scrooge's experiences in the Gold Rush, 1953's Back to the Klondike, and 1965's North of the Yukon. Don Rosa first returned to the setting in 1988's Last Sled to Dawson, and later, of course, Scrooge's experience as a miner would comprise the 8th chapter of the aforementioned Life and Times. Given that, you can forgive Rosa for going back to the well, compared to Superman's prehistory on Krypton, or the various convoluted latter-day metaphysics of Spider-Man's origins. Scrooge's history seems both well-established and remarkably consistent, solidly moored to real events, and sparingly embellished. Of course, the most significant events of his time as a sourdough have already been related. His arrival, his struggles, the climactic pay dirt that served as the culmination of decades of fruitless questing are all related elsewhere. Hearts of the Yukon is a side story, focused most squarely on the circumstances of Scrooge's aborted romance with the only woman who ever came close to displacing ambition from his heart's throne, Goldie O'Gilt. Our story today details how their unconsummated attraction almost burned down the whole city, as Goldie's annoyance at Scrooge's neglect prompts her to sign an arrest warrant for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The main antagonist is a real person, Colonel Samuel Benfield Steele, who maintained a surprisingly high standard of law and order in the frontier town, despite his somewhat comical portrayal here. He's accompanied by an American journalist named Jack London, another real figure of Dawson lore, who remarkably never appeared in any of Scrooge's previous historical flashbacks. The centerpiece to this story even features a sequence remarkably like London's most famous short subject, To Build a Fire, albeit with a slightly more salutary ending, as Scrooge is saved from death in the snowy wastes by the timely intercession of an Icelandic sleigh driver. Ultimately, Goldie's machinations succeed in getting Scrooge's attention, but the adversarial nature of their courtship keeps them crucially separated, their mutual pride too great an obstacle for either to overcome. The back of the book features another appearance by the Mounties, a trifle featuring the 3 little pigs arresting the big bad wolf for the crime of trying to eat them. This book, the premiere issue of Gladstone's short-lived Walt Disney Giant anthology, is an artifact of a time of transition. With the bottom falling out of the last remnants of the newsstand, Bruce Hamilton's Gladstone outfit was forced into unappealing compromises. The company had already eliminated shiny stock in favor of simply using the interior newsprint for the cover.